Okay, let's continue with another video. We're going to be looking at yet another WarFrame and giving him some rankings and some scorings based on his abilities and various gameplay aspects. We're going to be looking at Harrow. Harrow, of course, being a priest-type WarFrame. You only ever see him running around in Eidolon hunts. But I feel like his kit is pretty damn good. Let's have a look at it. Harrow's first ability is Condemn. So the idea is that if you chain an enemy by throwing out these chains to go out of the front line, they are effectively crowd controlled. You can also notice that in the top right hand corner, my shields have suddenly gone from 540 to 838 because Condemn gives you shields and it also gives you over shields depending on how many shields you have, obviously. Harrow's second ability is Penance. So the idea is that it sacrifices Harrow's shield like so, but then it massively increases the fire rate of the weapon that you are using. It also massively increases the reload speed of the weapon that you are using, so you can kind of go crazy with a weapon like this, or a weapon like the Euphota Prime. Just notice how you're basically firing a lot of shots really quickly, but as soon as it's over, we're back to normal. That's how fast you can fire the Corinth Prime by itself without the use of Penance. Harrow's third ability is called Thurible. So the way that Thurible works is you channel Thurible for as long as you want, and you can see that there is a counter that shows how much energy you are getting on kill. You can actually deactivate it early if you want, but I've decided not to. Now, you've produced this field where anyone who gets killed by you under the effects of Thurible will get a lot of energy. So for example, here I go. I attack this corrupted heavy gunner. And now, I have received 35.8 energy, or rather 35 energy. I think it always rounds down depending on the decimal point. Actually, it just rounds down in general. One thing to note is that if you land a headshot, you do get a lot more energy. So, there we go. We got 143.1 energy. I believe the multiplier is a ×4 multiplier on headshots, so that is something you'll want to keep an eye on. And Harrow's last ability is called Covenant. So the way that Covenant works is you turn invincible and you start absorbing damage. You can see a counter there. And once that counter is finished, we're actually going to crowd control these enemies, you get a giant crit chance bonus depending on how much energy you have absorbed. Like so. Now this crit chance bonus is actually massively increased on headshots. Lots and lots of red crits. Lots and lots of red crits. Beautiful, beautiful red crits. And that's basically how that particular ability works. Harrow's passive is that he has twice as much overshield as any other Warframe, including Hildren, including Mag. All of those Warframes only get about 1,200 overshields, whereas Harrow gets around 2,400 overshields. So for example, here we have Harrow with 450 overshields. We're going to use Condemn, and we have gotten ourselves up to 2,850 overshields. That is his maximum, provided you're not using Redirection. Speaking of not using Redirection, let's have a look at the build that I'm running around with Harrow. So this is a build that I'm using right now. We're using Vitality because Harrow can heal himself. Otherwise, Stretch, Blind Rage, actually, because we're not going to be worrying too much about energy efficiency because Thurible exists. Otherwise, we're using Preparation. See that video. We're using Prime Flow because that's really, really good, and because we can actually get our own energy back, so there's a reason for that. You maybe want to check out the Preparation video. Otherwise, we're going to be using Tribunal and Lasting Covenant, which I'll talk about later on in this video. Also, Prime Continuity, because hell yeah. Otherwise, Enemy Radar for the Aura, but frankly, any Dash Polarity Aura is probably really good on Harrow. At this point, you might even use Corrosive Projection, even though Corrosive Projection has been nerfed. In terms of Arcanes, you will notice that I am not using Energize at all. I am choosing to use Aegis and Guardian, and that's again specifically because Thurible exists as an ability, so I'm not even going to worry about getting energy from energy orbs. The only time this really needs to get energy from energy orbs is maybe ESO, because Preparation doesn't work in ESO. Okay, let's talk about Harrow's damage output. So, none of Harrow's abilities actually do any damage. You can throw chains at people, but it won't damage them. You can use Penance, but that's obviously not going to damage them. Thurible's not going to damage anyone. Covenant is actually just a defensive ability, if anything, so that's not going to damage anyone at all. So, that would mean that Harrow's damage output is 0 out of 10, isn't it? Not quite. let's have a look. So, Covenant is actually a really powerful ability, as you may have seen, that actually can turn any weapon into a quote-unquote meta weapon. So what do I mean by that? Well, if we go up against these 3 crafted bombards again, and then we crowd control them, we wait for Covenant to finish, we're doing orange crits on the Scourge. Scourge, of course, having only a whopping 2% critical chance, ladies and gentlemen. Now it has 202% critical chance. For those who are wondering, this is the build that I am running with the Scourge, the Staff of Armor build. It has extra punch through, extra damage, extra multi-shot on the Riven. Otherwise, everything else is pretty much stock standard status build, because that's just basically how I want to roll with it. Corrosive viral radiation. This weapon does have innate corrosive, which makes it pretty damn strong. Against 3 corrupted heavy gunners, as long as they attack, there we go. You basically need that counter to reach about 1,500 and you're pretty much good to go. It does cap at 50%, so... And then the idea is you just aim for the head. That's pretty damn strong. And that's the Scourge, a status-based weapon that doesn't usually do a whole lot of damage in terms of crit. And because I am such a massive Paris Prime fan, let's use the Paris Prime as well, just to give you guys a rough idea about how powerful the Covenant ability is. You aim for those headshots, you get a ton of crit chance. That's basically the goal with this ability. You may also notice on the bottom right with any of those demonstrations that the duration for Covenant actually went up when we landed those headshots, and that's because we're using that lasting Covenant augment. So let's say we're going up against these 20 level 100 corrupted heavy gunners. Now I'm going to crowd control all of them. Now look at the bottom right hand corner, ready? We originally had 18 seconds of duration on Covenant, and now we have even more. And now we have a whopping 47 seconds of duration on Covenant. Like, that's basically how this augment works. You land successive headshots, you get a lot more duration on your Covenant, and that means more leeway to run around, preferably not die. We have 47 seconds now on Covenant. That's basically how lasting Covenant works. Looking at the bottom right hand corner, you will see a whopping 40 seconds left on Covenant. That's basically really, really strong. Of course, that's just Covenant. So what if we pair it with an ability that, oh, I don't know, massively increases your fire rate as well? That's right, we're going to pair it now with Penance. So here we go. Same level 100 corrupted heavy gunners. Now we're going to stun lock these enemies and hopefully still have enough energy to use Penance. Yep, we still do. Okay, here we go. Whoops. Would be nice if I could fit Prime Sure-Footed on my build, but whatever. I can bloody see the enemies. There we go. So yeah, when you pair Covenant and Penance together, you basically have really fast firing weapons that do tons and tons of red crit damage. Also keep in mind that Penance is actually really powerful by itself as well, so if you pair it with pretty much any weapon, you should be able to get quite a lot of value out of it. For example, here we have the Super Vandal, which is actually a pretty powerful weapon by its own right. We're going to just use Condemn. Now we have Penance active, and what do we know? Fire so quickly! Etc, etc. With bows, it's a little bit different. So basically what happens is you have super fast draw speeds and you have basically no delay between your arrows, like so. Whoops, missed. Like so. Basically you're firing that quickly. So that's pretty good by its own right. And finally, we also have penance working on melee weapons. So here we have the Fragile Prime. It's this slow of a weapon. Well, it's not terribly slow in my opinion, but it's still slow. But if we activate penance, you can see that we're now swinging a lot faster. Some stances, or rather some stance combos still seem a little bit slow, but maybe they're always meant to be that slow. Now keep in mind that was against paused enemies, so we weren't doing stealth damage, but you get the idea. You're swinging a lot faster than usual. Just keep in mind that when it comes to using penance, there is a little bit of a bottleneck, and that's actually having shields. The more shields you have, the longer duration you have. So when you max out Harrow's overshields, you can keep penance up for like 70 seconds with my build, 80 seconds even, depending on how much power duration you have. But if you have low overshields, or even no overshields, you tend to only have it for about 15 seconds thereabouts, so you kind of just have to figure out how much shields you have. So, as long as you can keep up both abilities at the same time, and this is going to be a running theme with Harrow, so I'll be saying this a lot more, you'll end up with basically very fast firing weapons that do a ton of damage, with high, if not just crazy, ludicrous amounts of critical chance values, especially if you land a headshot. For some weapons, they will become more usable than before, i.e. they probably were terrible before, but now they actually seem pretty dope. And for other weapons like Sonos Paris, Corinth Prime, they become just these disgusting red crit dealing god killers, which is just fantastic. But there is one thing that I will take a point off for his damage score, and that is the fact that none of his abilities do damage anyway. So this is all about making sure that your weapons are doing much more damage. So because of that, I'm going to give Harrow's damage output a score of 9 out of 10.
I have opened a new data conduit. Proceed immediately.
Okay, let's talk about Harrow's survivability. Now, Harrow has an average amount of health, above average amount of shields, and a below average amount of armor. That's unfortunate, but that's okay. Harrow also has 3 methods of staying alive in battle, but 2 of these can also be migrated to the support capabilities as well. They kind of work hand in hand. So let's have a look at it. Harrow's main method of surviving is through the use of penance. So here we activate penance right now, and we're going to lose a bit of health like so, but now we're going to heal ourselves by actually hitting an enemy. So you can see there that in the middle, when I landed that shot, there was a counter that came up that said 611 health healed, 317 health healed, 527. Do you see that in the middle right there? 1029, 667, 1127 rather. That's basically the idea of penance. Essentially, it converts a portion of your damage into healing, so I actually don't have enough energy for this. There we go. 678. There we go. And you'll notice that pretty much, especially with the Corinth Prime being such a powerful weapon to begin with, one shot pretty much gives me a full health restore, so that is pretty damn strong. So let's say we use a weapon like the Super Vandal instead. So one shot only gave us 18 health, 32, 47. You can see that like one bullet from a weapon like Super Vandal that is not really like a single shot heavy weapon like that, that is only healing us slowly per bullet. But if we use the weapon as it is intended, you can see that we're pretty much staying alive even if people are shooting at us. And just like that, we have managed to heal about 3,000 health, like so. Because right now I think I have Aegis active, so that's going to keep me even more alive. At that point, that's more of an Aegis point than a Harrow point. Of course, Harrow has another way of staying alive. It's not really used for staying alive outside of Eidolon hunts, but it's definitely something that you can look to if you're in a bit of a pinch, and that is the use of Covenant, because you do end up becoming invulnerable for a period of time. This is why he's used a lot in Eidolon hunts for that particular phase, where the Eidolon starts to scream and gives everyone magnetic procs. At that point, you can actually activate Harrow's invulnerability, and not only is everyone invulnerable from the magnetic procs, they're also invulnerable from the amount of damage that that particular scream tends to give them. Also keep in mind that because shield gaining exists, you can use Condemn to keep yourself alive as well. If you happen to replenish shields into overshields, that'll give you a hard shield gate when you lose those shields, but if you don't get yourself all the way up to your maximum shields, then you'll end up with the soft shield gate, so just keep that in mind. Now, Harrow has an augment for Thurible called Warding Thurible. The idea is that allies, including himself in range, take 40% less damage while channeling Thurible, and you also get extra energy while using Thurible, so that's really, really good. Now, because this is affected by power strength, I have my damage reduction increased all the way to 79%, which means that I'm basically tanking pretty well if I am channeling Thurible. Essentially, this is what it looks like. Normally, these rockets would have killed me instantly. Like so. But when I was channeling Thurible, I was able to eat up quite a lot of that damage. So basically, as long as you can keep up Penance, you'll pretty much be invincible, as long as you don't get blindsided by enemies, I guess. Otherwise, Condemn is also a really nice way of providing a little buffer through shield getting, so that's definitely something you want to keep an eye on. And if you're really in a pinch and you have the energy, you could always use Coveted so that you end up with those few seconds of pretty much being invincible, so that's definitely something you want to check out. So because of that, I think it's pretty obvious, we're going to give Harrow's Survivability a score of 10 out of 10.
A Juggernaut nearby? Only attack when it's high concentrations of infested blood. Slow the fight if you want it to go away.
Okay, let's talk about Harrow's crowd control, and it's really, really simple. It's one ability in the form of Condemn. It is an AoE hard stun. Great! 10 out of 10! Done. We're done. No, I will dock off 1 point because it is an AoE crowd control, but in a line, as opposed to a circle like Limbo. So if you're surrounded, you're kind of screwed, right? You kind of have to do a spinning kind of thing in order to get everyone, because this is not a dome. So that's why people like Limbo and Hildren get 10 out of 10 for their crowd control, but Harrow is going to only get a 9 out of 10, specifically because it is in a line instead of a circle.
If you let the Kuba siphon give damage to get, I'll grind the water into miniature dumplings.
Okay, let's talk about Harrow's support capabilities. Now, a lot of Harrow's support capabilities are pretty much the same as his survivability capabilities, so let's just quickly go through them. Defender should be able to give full health restores to nearby allies, provided he's using a weapon like Corinth Prime, but if he's using a weapon like Super Vandal, then you will need a couple more shots in order to give basically full health restores. It should be pretty easy to do that. But otherwise, it means that allies near Harrow are effectively invulnerable. Also, Covenant gives everyone invincibility anyway as part of its first effect, so this is why he is usually emphasized for Eidolon hunts, because of that particular bit of invincibility, and it also increases the crit chance of their guns afterwards, which means that you can end up with some pretty hilariously disgusting numbers during Eidolon hunts, especially if you aim for the head in that final part of an Eidolon hunt. There's also one more thing that Harrow can do, which is to give energy to allies, and that is through the use of his Thurible. So the idea is that when you channel Thurible, you now have this field that you can see that is expanded outside. So anyone who is standing in that field, if you land a headshot, or even if you just kill an enemy, then you will get a lot of energy for yourself, but you also give that energy to an ally as well. So basically everyone gets a ton of energy because Harrow is killing enemies. Now, the big thing about both Penance and Thurible is that Harrow needs to be the one who deals damage in order for this to work. So that's kind of a bit weird. It's a bit weird that Harrow is supporting his allies by killing all his enemies. It's kind of the same way that one would facetiously say Mesa supports her allies by killing all their enemies. She doesn't. That's not what support means. So instead, D has actually released a new augment called Tribunal. So this is an augment for Condemn, although it really is an augment for basically everything. The idea is that when you condemn a bunch of enemies, allies can then kill those enemies to get energy for themselves and nearby allies as well, so they're basically doing your job at 50% effectiveness. Or if they actually just hit those enemies, they get that healing for themselves, i.e. doing your job, but again at 50% effectiveness. So you're still incentivized to do it yourself, because then you get basically twice as much output out of your support, but at least now you don't have to rely on yourself to be supporting your allies by killing every enemy in the game. Instead, you can actually just, you know, let your allies do something for a change. So that's basically how that works. So Thurible and Penance alone, in my opinion, would have given Harrow a 10 out of 10 score. Basically means we're giving him a 20 out of 10 score, isn't it? But no, just like his survivability, so long as you can keep both of these abilities active, your allies pretty much should have no problem staying alive and using their abilities, because you're constantly healing them and you're constantly giving them energy, especially with the use of Tribunal. So Harrow will get a support score of 10 out of 10. Okay, let's talk about Harrow's kit usability. So Harrow's kit is pretty much usable in every situation, especially now that shield gating is a thing. It's even better through the use of Condemn. But even before shield gating, Condemn and his passive fed into Penance, so that was always really useful anyway. And Thurible being super duper powerful, just like Garuda, giving energy for yourself alone would have resulted in a 10 out of 10. But Thurible is pretty damn strong by itself. Also, Covenant, obviously, really powerful. I do find, though, that in most missions, I don't use Covenant all that much. That's just probably me and my use of already really powerful weapons like Corinth Prime, Sonus Prime, Paris Prime, and all that jazz, Rubico Prime, etc, etc. So, basically, Harrow's kit is going to get a usability score of 10 out of 10. So with a damage score of 9 out of 10, a survivability score of 10 out of 10, a crowd control score of 9 out of 10, a support score of 10 out of 10, and a kit usability score of 10 out of 10, this brings Harrow's overall score to 9.6 out of 10. That's right, Harrow is, I think, maybe off the top of my head, the only 10 out of 10 Warframe in existence based on my scoring system. But keep in mind, even though he is super duper powerful, that doesn't make him super duper easy. I think he's actually one of the most difficult Warframes to master because of different timers, different conversion events, different buffs, all of these moving parts as part of his gameplay. There's just a lot of things you need to keep an eye on when you're playing Harrow, and if you make one mistake, all of a sudden, your Thurible is completely out and you don't have any energy to charge it with. Oh no, everything's now 50,000 times more difficult than usual. So, you know, there's just a lot of things you need to keep an eye on when you're playing Harrow, but ultimately the idea is if you can keep those ability timers active, you'll basically be an unkillable death machine that deals red crits for days. I do want to mention again that the new Condemn augment being Tribunal does make things a little bit easier for Harrow, but even then you still gotta keep up with those timers, so that's basically the idea with Harrow. So, let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. Do you think Harrow is a 10 out of 10 Warframe? Let me know in the comments. How do you use Harrow? Do you use Harrow for very specific things, or do you like to go for a more generalist Harrow like I do? Let me know in the comments. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed this. If you liked this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Warframe content, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye!